Hey there, Omaha. Welcome into another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and one of the great things about Omaha's food scene is you never know where your next great meal is going to come from. You could get an epic Detroit-style pizza off a transformed school bus. You can get handmade pasta out of a drive-thru window. You can get elite-level Texas barbecue out of a restaurant the size of a hotel room. Sometimes you just have to know where to look, and sometimes it's all about who tells you where to look. And until a few months ago, I had no idea where Aviles Latin Market was. But fortunately, I had some good food people in my life to tell me about this place. And now that I know about it, I want to tell everybody because it is just some of the most fantastic Latin food that you will find. And to talk about it today is my guest, the owner and chef, Jose Aviles. Jose, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Dan. It's good to be here, and I'm glad you found us and you like our stuff, man.
The pleasure is all mine, and we are going to talk all about it. We need to educate people on just how fantastic this place is. But right off the bat, I just want to let people know, Aviles Latin Market is located on the backside of a strip mall off 108th and Q. It's a little bit difficult to find, but if you just punch it into the GPS, it'll take you back there, land you right on the doorstep, and once you find it, you are going to want to come back again and again.
Yes, definitely. The GPS hasn't been quite our best friend with that. We've kind of messed with it a little bit. It kind of shows us in the front of the building, so some people don't realize there's a backside to it. So if you're familiar with it, 108th and Q, Roxbury Plaza, best way to describe it is everyone knows the Rib Shack. So we're behind the Rib Shack. Can't miss it. Just go around back and you'll find us.
So one of the things that I find so interesting about your business is that someone can just stop into the market and they can pick up groceries, or they can go back to the deli and get a hot meal, or they can stop in and like grab some take and bakes for later, or just get some meats and store them and then cook later. So like you have all these different options on ways that you can get food at Aviles. How did you decide that you're going to offer all these different things?
You know, the idea started as me trying to build a bridge between West Omaha and South Omaha. You know, for years I've lived in West Omaha, and I've driven all the way to South Omaha to try to get the Latin goods, per se. And it's always me stocking up on tons of hot sauces and all that stuff because I'm not going to make that drive again for a good 3 weeks or so. So I wanted to kind of bridge that gap. So I've had the idea of, honestly, for over 10 years. And, you know, I got to say, my wife has been my rock and the person that's kind of pushed me. You know, she's always, from day one, she's always, you know, kind of told me that I'm talented and doesn't understand why I'm working for somebody when I have all these skills that I can be doing it for myself and building something for myself. So she's kind of been my, you know, my mentor, I guess, in a way to push me towards business. And that's kind of how I came about. She's like, let's just do it. Let's just open something up. Let's just find something. We'll figure it out little by little. And that's kind of how it started, you know. Originally, we wanted a project started in Millard, actually. That's where we wanted to open. I was set in Millard. You know, just middle ground for everyone. Not too far south, not too far west. But the project kind of fell through after a couple months into it. And we kind of backed into this current location. I knew it'd be a challenge being so hidden in the back, but I was like, you know what? If you create something good, people will come and find you. And I felt like everyone just kind of punches in on a GPS, and that's the way they find things, and that's exactly how it's been. You know, all word of mouth, such as yourself. Everyone's just kind of been very blessed that everyone's really been word of mouth and told everyone where to find us and come and look for us, you know. They post us on social media. I haven't had to ask anyone to do anything.
Oh, that's amazing.
They've done it on their own, and it's been great, you know. So, yeah, like I said, I've been in the restaurant business for many years. I've been a chef throughout the city. And to be honest, I was kind of burnt out on it, that I wanted to do like a grocery store, have a little bit of food, but kind of stay away from those late hours, those that grind in a restaurant, you know, try to have a little bit more family oriented. Try to have something that gives me more time with my family and kids. You know, I'm getting older and I just haven't had enough time to spend with my kids. And that's really what kind of drove me to it. You know, but little did I know that the food was going to be the most popular thing, because the deli had a few items, but it was mostly a meat market. But everyone just kept asking for food and enchiladas and tamales and you name it. And it's become what it's become today, mostly food. And, most of our sales have become food that we're slowly, kind of transitioning into more of a restaurant style with that little bodega. I love that concept and I like to keep it. But I think our next move is trying to figure out a way to add like a dining area because that's just what our guests are craving from us. So that's kind of where we're headed towards in the near future.
Talk me through that. What does that look like?
Well, we currently added a couple tables just to kind of see what that does. And they tend to stay pretty busy. Like you said, we have warm food. You can sit down and have a quick bite. Or you can do a family style, grab a couple pounds of meat or whatnot and take some food home or take and bakes. You're on the run, you pick up some food, you take it home for the kids to cook. You don't have to deal with it. So we really got a little bit of everything. So that's kind of where I would like to keep it, and that's kind of where, like I said, just maybe adding a seating area would create a better atmosphere for some of those folks that, we don't have a big table, for example, if you want to take your whole family to sit down and eat. So I like to create something like that.
Okay. I feel that. I love what you said earlier about, you'd have to make that trip to Southo to go to whether it's a supermercado or Jacobo's or, whatever it might be, one of those awesome. And these are fantastic places.
Oh, yeah.
They're worth driving for, but you can't make a 25-minute drive, all the time just with work and stuff like that. So bringing that to West Omaha has just been such a blessing, in my opinion. And I love that you don't just focus on one cuisine. Your market features food and products from Puerto Rico, Colombia, Cuba, Mexico, El Salvador, Ecuador, the Dominican Republic. I'm probably forgetting some. Those are just the ones that I got in my notes. Why did you, when you were bringing this concept together, why did you say, I need to bring all these nationalities in and not just focus on a couple, but like really try and highlight the entire scene?
Well, I kind of... like you said, I didn't want to close myself to, and I get asked that a lot. Why didn't you name it like Aviles Mexican Market or Mercado or whatever? I didn't want to close myself off like that, because I like to cook and I like all kinds of cuisines and I like fusion and I like Puerto Rican food, Dominican, all kinds of food, And not only do I like to eat it, I like to create it. And most of our guests are a mixture of that. So I don't want to close myself off, which is why I went with the Latin name. That way we get a little bit of everything. And, we're smaller, so it's very hard to get everything, of course. But what I have is I created a wish list. And whenever they come in, whatever became more popular are the items that I got. So we just got a little bit of everything, but they're mostly those daily items that people use. And that's kind of how I've created it. And that way, anyone could come and get their favorite goods and get a couple items to eat as well. My wife's Colombian. My son, I had with my ex-wife who's Puerto Rican, so he's Puerto Rican. I'm Mexican American. I was born in California, but I'm first generation Mexican, so I'm a mixture of everything myself.
You're the melting pot,
man.
I
am the melting pot. I'm from California, which is the melting pot of cuisine. So that's kind of what I want to create. Another thing, big focus for us has been, I feel we've lost that neighborhood grocery store or market, where I grew up, that everyone knew you. You're welcome with a hello. There's always someone there to help you or carry your groceries to the front. I feel we've lost that touch. You go to Walmart and it's great, but you got to bag your own groceries. You can never find anyone to help you out. And I feel like we're just losing that touch that I want to create because that's just how I grew up. That's just, my dad would send me to the local grocery store and go get me this and tell him I'll get them later. Of course, I don't have that right now. But, they knew me, they knew who I was, they knew my father, and I just want to create that, where I teach my daughter, my kids, or whoever's working. If you see the guests here more than 2 times, ask them for their name. Listen, I want to know them on a name basis. I'm horrible with names, but I'm great with faces, which is great. But, I'm trying to learn everyone's because I want them to know that I do appreciate their business and I know them, just have that connection, which I feel so many businesses have lost.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to focus on like the idea of bringing this to West Omaha because, you mentioned like there are some great stores in South O, but no one had really tried, or at least done it successfully, transferred this idea over to West Omaha. And you said you've had this idea in your head for about a decade. Was there any worry in your mind that, yeah, it works great, in the South Omaha area, but maybe it's just not meant to succeed in West O? Like maybe that's not what people are looking for. Clearly they are looking for it,
Yeah.
but as you were coming up with the idea, was there any doubt in your mind about that?
Of course, there's always a small doubt. I mean, it's always a risk. I'm kind of skeptical about the move, but I think that's what's taken me so long. Well, first, building up the capital, of course, it takes a lot. That's my entire life savings. It takes a lot to make it happen, which is, I get asked, why'd you choose the back? Well, I can't afford the front. Why'd you get a better location? Well, I couldn't afford a better location. I mean, I could have gotten in and, the cost for that would be double or triple. And I might have done it for a few months. And, it's just scary to me to sign a lease for so many years and then not be able to afford that. That's scary at the beginning. If I would have known it was going to go a little better than as it is now, then I might have done it then. But it's just scary at the beginning, which is why I chose that location in the back. But, going back to bring it back, I just didn't feel it was time. Because like you said, what do you think is going to make it work in West Omaha? I didn't think it was time before. It felt like people weren't ready yet, or there wasn't enough Latinos. And I felt like there's a lot more Latinos now towards West Omaha. And that's kind of what made my decision. Now, to my surprise, I did not expect everybody else to love Latin food so much. If I would have known that, I would have done it years ago. Because I really expected to be all Latino. And have a small percentage of everybody else. But it's turned out to be quite opposite of that. We get everything else, and then Latino tends to be our last, and specifically Mexican,
Really?
Yeah, and it's complete surprise to us. But yeah, so we've had to tailor our business to kind of accommodate that,
How so?
Well, like I said, we had the meat market, which I think kind of calls out for a lot of Latin people. The fresh meats and whatnot, the asada, etc. And then our produce area was huge when we opened. All those specialty vegetables and fruits that you can't get here, that's usually what they look for, which was a big struggle for us because we were wasting them, throwing away lots of food. It just wasn't selling because we weren't quite grasping those folks. Once we were hitting, and two, they didn't know. And second, one thing I just kind of learned is that a lot of folks associate being West with being more expensive. So we kind of battle with that. And to a certain point, I guess they could be right because being a small market, I don't have that same buying power a lot of these other folks do. Because they've been around for so many years, they buy so much product that, yeah, they're going to be a little bit cheaper, but it's cents, but people will drive for cents, We kind of battled with that for a little bit to where, food took off. So the meat markets, I just kept the popular parts, the popular vegetables, stuff that we use in-house as well. Just stuff that I can keep rotating, keep fresh on a daily basis. And that's kind of how I had to accommodate. A lot of the folks know the food, such like yourself, and they know it well to the point where, I got so many Caucasian teaching me about Mexican items.
Really?
And I'm like, no, that doesn't exist. They're like, oh, yeah, it does. And I'll ask a purveyor, and they're like, sure enough, it exists. And I'm blown away. For example, something so simple as Doritos. I had someone, I said, I want the Mexican Doritos. I was like, oh, I got Doritos right there. They're like, no, the Mexican ones are different. I was like, I don't think there are, but I'll check. And sure enough, they come in, and they are.
What?
It's the same Dorito bag, but it's made in Mexico, and the flavor is different. And I was blown away.
That's crazy.
So they know the stuff, they know the product, and I'm learning myself every day about new stuff, you know? So that's kind of what I mean about accommodating, kind of changing it to its current clientele.
At what point did you see the need to maybe start shifting where it was maybe less on the products and the grocery side of things and more on the food, the deli? This might be like, this is what people are really coming for. Maybe this is where we put most of our attention.
Like I said, when you start seeing stuff being expired, stuff being, we're wasting that. But not only that, I suddenly have to be in there a lot more cooking and making more food because I can't keep up with the demand. When we first started out, the enchiladas, for example, were insane. We'd have lines out the door. We'd be making them to order because we couldn't keep up. People waiting in their cars. Salsas, et cetera, et cetera. You had to get creative, You get down south, most of them will bottle it up to order. I was like, I couldn't do that. It was just moving too fast. So we do it daily, and we bottle them up, and it's just easy grab. Come in, and you take out. I have a cooler now that's double-sided where they could just come and grab and go and not wait for us. Because it was moving too fast, and I didn't want people to wait so long. I understand people are like myself, always on the go. They want to come in and get out, which, that was one of the things when I would go down south that I hate waiting in line for so long. I wanted to cut that out from my place. Sometimes it's hard to do. We have our taco day, which is $1.25 taco.
And that's Taco Thursday, not
Taco
Tuesday.
Taco Thursday,
yeah,
yes,
you switch it up.
I did. Like everything else, I like to switch it up. I like to be different. And everyone's asked me, well, everyone else does Tuesday. I was like, well, that's why I do Thursday. I was like, now you got an option on Thursday. Our tamales, for example. Traditionally, everyone does red chili pork, green chili chicken. I do opposite. I do green chili pork, red chili chicken. I like to switch it up and be different. That way, I don't have to compete with anyone and just try something different. It's another thing is the chile verde is my dad's recipe. It's been in our family for, centuries, and I wanted to bring that to the mix and use it. It's very good. And how can I use it more? And that was the way to kind of use it, Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's kind of how I found out. The demand. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into a couple of these menu items because I want to tease some taste buds. If some of these people haven't been in demand yet, we're going to put them in demand, and you know where I'm going to start. That's with the Cubano. So a couple months ago, I made it my personal mission. I was going to find the best Cubano in Omaha. So I went to like 11 or 12 different restaurants and tried a bunch of different ones. Yours was actually the first that I tried, and it ended up being far and away the best. And that is not saying anything bad about any other restaurant because I had some other really good ones. Yours is just that good. I gotta give a shout out to Mike Johnson. I would not have known it without him. Love you, Mike. Thank you
Mike.
so much. So your Cuban, it's not strictly traditional, but it is fantastic. How did you decide to put this on the menu? Because like enchiladas, tamales, tacos, those are things that you would expect, but a Cubano, not necessarily. How did it make the menu?
Well, like I said before, the whole Latino thing. I've always had in mind of bringing, and I still have a lot more ideas I want to bring in. I just can't keep up right now. Another thing is that I really don't have a full kitchen per se because it wasn't meant for that. So I've had to slowly create and revamp more or less a kitchen for that. But the Cuban came about, I took my wife to Miami as a surprise. I was going to ask her to marry me. We're going to get engaged. So she had no idea. I just said, we're going on vacation. She had no idea where. So we flew down to Miami. She found out the day of. And we went down and I took her. I've been there several times. So I took her down South Beach, went to Little Havana. And she had the Cuban for the first time. And went down and had, Puerto Rican food and all that good stuff. But we came back and we still had the Cuban in our taste buds. Mm-hmm. And I was like, God, I'm craving a Cuban sandwich. And she's like, well, what's all in it? You know how to make it? I was like, oh, of course I know how to make it. She's like, well, what's all in it? So I kind of started saying it in my head. I was like, wait a minute. I pretty much have everything here to create one. It's not traditional, but it's our version. So I just made them for us for lunch. and we were kind of blown away ourselves. We're like, whoa, this was really good. I was like, I should put it on the menu. She's like, yeah, definitely. So we put it on the menu, and it was kind of stagnant for a while. First of all, I didn't have pictures on the menus for that, so I think that kind of created, hard for people to kind of picture it or imagine it. But yeah, it had been on the menu for a while, and then you came in, and let me tell you, you created a frenzy. Lord have mercy.
Sorry, not sorry.
No, thank you.
People need to know about this stinking sandwich. It is one of the best sandwiches I've ever eaten.
Oh my God, you came in, and I had no idea who you were. And I got to be honest, I never heard of you. I never knew who you were. I found out real fast who you were. And I kind of read up on you one night. I'm like impressed. And your following is quite impressive. We've been on Omaha Food Lovers since we've opened. We've get a lot of love on there. We get a lot of people from there, but not as much as when you posted that. And your folks are just diehards.
They're awesome.
They are.
Them.
They're amazing, and they speak very highly of you, and they respect your views and your palate, most of all. It has been insane. And let me tell you, in 3 weeks, we sold over 2,000 pounds of pork.
What? Oh my gosh.
Yes, I was blown away how much carnitas we had to make because the sandwich has our carnitas, which is our, Mexican style carnitas, which is what I use. Like you said before, it's a telera, which is a Mexican bread that we use for torta, but kind of gives you that same texture and taste as a Cubano, which is typically like a French bread or a baguette. But yeah, it was absolutely insane with the Q&A after your post, and it continues. I thought it would slow down. It has not. It has not stopped.
So just, first of all, thank you for all the kind words. I don't know if I deserve half of those. I mean, you're very, very kind. Thank you. But just from a logistical standpoint, when you say you're selling thousands of pounds of pork, that's not something that you were planning on.
Absolutely.
So how do you, as a restaurateur, make that adjustment on the fly to say, oh, shoot, like we're seeing an uptick in sales. We need more carnitas. Like, how do you make that adjustment?
You don't. You don't. I would, on a typical week, I'd go through, 4 cases of pork, which we sell a lot, don't get me wrong. But not like that. And it was just like every 2 days, I was having to go get more and go get more and go get, and I'm like, so it kind of like on the second week, I bought 1,000 pounds. And I was like, holy smokes, how much stuff are we going through? And I did the math, and I went back to the results. I was like, oh my God, I was blown away. So that's kind of how that's, but you can adjust, and it's hard because you don't want to go overboard and buy too much because you think you're going to sell it. So it was just buy, cook, and I just kept having to go shopping because, I needed it. The thing is, it was tough because I would run out for hours. They would come in, I wouldn't have it because I slow cook.
Yeah.
So it's 4 hours of cooking minimum. And by the time, they're ready, it'd be half a day that I'd lose if people wanting a Cuban. So I had to adjust real fast.
Well, I apologize for any extra work that I might have caused you. But
it's a blessing. And, I have to remind myself on a daily basis when I'm tired and I'm working that this is a blessing. It's a new business and we got a long ways to go still, It's a blessing that we're busy. So I'd love to continue that. I got lots of bills to pay.
Well, for me, it was such a blessing to find someone that, and you mentioned it's not strictly traditional, but you're pretty close. I mean, that the roll is very close to that traditional Cuban bread. Yeah, carnitas are a little bit different from the roasted pork, but everything else basically the same. And that was my main thing as I went around Omaha and tried all these different Cubans is I had some awesome sandwiches, but a lot of people were just kind of, very few people got the toast on the bread right. Very few sandwiches got that down. But they were just some combination of mustard and pickles and pulled pork and ham, and they'd throw it on a sandwich and call it a Cuban. And I'd be like, this is a great pulled pork sandwich. it's not a Cuban.
Yeah.
Yours is a Cuban. It is something where, and I've been to Miami and I've had a Cuban, and I was like you. I had that taste in my taste buds, and I was just like, I can't find anywhere that has this. And then when I had yours, I was just like, we're talking like a 10-year gap the last time I was in Miami, and I was like, that's it. That's that flavor that I've been looking for.
You know what? That's where I'm blown away. We got a lot of Cubans now coming in, and they've had it, and they're like, Papi, this is good. I'm like, okay. So, that validates a little bit, and of course they're like, yeah, I get it. It's a little, but they love it. It's gone great. We've been very fortunate that people love the sandwich, and because of it, it's brought in a lot of people that didn't know about us, and it opened their eyes to other food.
Yep.
They're trying other stuff, and they're loving everything else that they wouldn't have tried before. Mm-hmm. So it's not only the Cuban. It kind of woke up a lot of people to different stuff, and now they're asking me for more stuff, which is why I brought a little new creation for you.
You want to tell people about that?
Sure. So, as before, like I get a lot of requests for a lot of stuff. And a lot of times I got to brush them off because I'd be cooking all day, every day, nonstop, which I do already, but I get asked for everything. But one of the things I've been asking most of is sweet tamales. And, I didn't want to do the same old boring strawberry and pineapple that everyone does. And I just want to create something a little different. We recently took a trip with my family to Chicago. And I'm not a big fan of sweets. But my daughter wouldn't leave us alone for a day and a half. She wanted to go to the Nutella store. So here we go. That line was around the block.
Really?
I was blown away, and I was like, I never even tasted Nutella. So I was like, she bought a bottle. She got a custom-made bottle with her name on it, and she was the happiest kid ever, and everyone, it was like going to Disneyland. So I tasted it. I was like, okay, this is good. So I wrapped that around my head. I wanted to create something with it, and I couldn't think of anything, and then the tamale kicked in. So I was like, I created the strawberry Nutella chocolate tamale. And we just started this weekend, actually. I thought I'd just introduce it, and then we kind of go to special orders after that. But I couldn't keep up with them this weekend, so I think they might be still for good as well. They're doing really well. So that's kind of what I brought for you to taste. I don't have them warmed up right now, but yeah, I kind of brought for you to taste, and then you can give me your opinion later on them.
I can't wait to try it, and based off everything I've had of yours, I'm pretty confident that it's going to be good, especially if it's selling out so well. But I love the creativity that you took something like your tamales are fantastic, and you took something that's savory, and you found a way to inject sweetness into it, and like it's the same delivery device, but completely transformed now, which is something that's just so cool about cooking, and I just love that ingenuity.
It is, and that's, with my past being a chef, that's where that kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
You like to create, you like to try new things that, till it happens, and it's amazing how you can mix salty with sweet and make it amazing.
Oh, yes.
One of my favorite cuisines to cook is Asian food, and that's where I learned to cook with salt and sugar. And when I first heard that, it just did not really click in my head. I was like, how are you going to put salt with sugar literally in the same sauce or item, but you make it work, and it works great, So that's kind of the same thing, People ask about our al pastor, and it never kicked in because I never know how to describe the flavor of al pastor. Till about a week ago, I'm trying to describe it that it's salty but sweet because it's got pineapple in it, and I was like, Mexican teriyaki.
Oh, there you go.
That's the best way to describe it, Mexican teriyaki. And it just clicked in people's heads right away.
I've never heard that before, but that is genius. Yeah, two words to sum it up. I love it.
Mexican teriyaki.
So people can come in, they can get the Cubano, which they should do. They can get tacos, enchiladas, tamales, tortas. But there are two other menu items that I want to ask you about. And the first one, I had my initial visit, got the Cubano, was sold. I was just like, whatever this man wants to feed me from now on, I'm good to go. So I came in and I was just like, Jose, tell me what to order. I will order this. And you didn't even hesitate. You said, get the quesadilla. Now, obviously, birria and birria taco is kind of having a moment right now. This is a very trendy food, I would say, and a lot of restaurants do a very watered-down version of it. Yours is not that way. I'm not asking you to, like, give me the trade secrets and, you know, give away your recipe or anything like that, but what do you do to make your birria and give it that just rich, intense flavor?
So funny you say that. That's a recipe that I've honestly worked on for many years, since I've had that idea, probably 10 years. And I've modified it numerous of times, and I had a set recipe for when I opened my doors. And it changed again once I opened.
Really?
It did. I like birria, but what you said, it gets watered down. You have it in the stock right away, and it's fine. But as soon as you take it out, it's dried meat. It's just like pulled beef, and it dries out. So I wanted to create something more savory, like you said. So I make my sauce thicker to where, you know, they mostly boil it or whatnot. I try to render the fat a little bit. I make, you know, I pre-make my birria sauce, and it's thicker to where the point of the consistency, I would like to say, is between barbacoa and birria, because barbacoa tends to be too dry too. It's almost the same thing, but dry, which I'm not a big fan because it's so dry. So I wanted to find like a middle ground to bridge them, and that's kind of how I created that. You know, I have my sauce, which is like a thicker consistency, maybe like almost like a mole sauce. But when you cook it, the beef releases the juices that mix it together to make it a little bit brothier, and that's where it is. And so then at the end, I take some of that and make the consommé to serve with it. So that's kind of how it came about.
And it is wonderful. So to just tease the taste buds a little bit more, people, and this is going to be a poor description because it won't accurately describe what it is, but just imagine a quesadilla that has like a super crispy outside. It's just filled with just like really rich, savory, tender beef and just like overflowing with cheese. And then you can dunk it into this consommé that just completely sends it over the top. It was wonderful. I drank the rest of the consommé when I was done with it, and I had no shame because I was like, I'm not wasting a drop of this. This is too good. I hesitate to even ask this next question because I don't want to give you more work, but you just mentioned the word mole. Have you ever? It looks like you put thought into offering mole. It's not on the menu now, and we're not going to put your feet to the fire and say, "Oh, you got to put it on." But is that something that you've considered?
I've actually made it before.
Oh, okay.
I have. Mole is one of those things that my recipe is a mixer of my mom's recipe, and it's a very long, intensive recipe. So it takes an all-day event. You know, there's so many ingredients that I've made a short version of it. But I have run it as a special. It's funny you say that because a good friend of mine, he keeps hounding me about it. And every post I put, he's like, what about the chicken mole? What about the chicken mole? So in the next couple of weeks, I plan to run it as a special. Ooh. And then if it kicks off, of course, like everything else, it might make it to the menu. But, you know, I like to make sure whatever I does make it to the menu, it's something that it sells consistently, as I like to keep it fresh. I don't like stuff, you know, you're never going to find anything older than a day in my store. It's always made daily. It's fresh, and I don't want stuff to sit. I don't want to run that risk of stuff. And, you know, mole is one of those things that I feel a lot of people don't know it, or they either love it or hate it. And there's so many versions of it that you really have to find the one that you like. My mom's from Michoacan and my dad's from Guerrero, which is two different ways of making mole. You know, a lot of moles are sweet or darker, and the chocolate is pungent, or they're too sweet. My style mole, my mother's style mole, it does have a little bit of chocolate, but it's not going to be sweet. It's going to be more of a savory, even a little bit of spicy. So it's a little bit different. And traditionally, how we ate and grew up eating it wasn't with tortillas either. It was with a tamale, but it was like a flat tamale cooked in a banana leaf, so thin that it would work like a tortilla.
Whoa.
Yes, very different. And that's what we would eat it with.
Oh, man.
Yeah, completely different.
Okay. Well, folks, if you aren't following Aviles Latin Market on Facebook, now you should be, because if that comes out on special sometime in the next couple weeks, you're going to want to check that out. I know I'm going to be watching it like a hawk.
Yes. So I tell everyone, follow us on there. That's where I'll post anything. We used to have a webpage. It didn't get much action. Everyone's about Facebook. And so that's just where I put everything on our Facebook. Tends to be where we have the most traffic.
All right. One last food item that I got to ask you about, because honestly, this surprised me more than anything, and that was the chicharron. And I'm normally not a huge fan of chicharron, which is fried pork belly, because whenever I see pork belly on a menu, and I've had it several times, when it's cooked really well, it's awesome. But it's often not cooked well, and then it's just greasy and fatty and chewy and gross. And so I just, at this point, I mostly just stay away from it.
Yeah.
But yours, not that at all. The flavor is like bacon, but to the 10th degree. I mean, it is just salty and succulent, but you get that crispy skin on the outside. So you like bite into it and it crunches.
Yeah.
And then you get into the softness of the pork belly, and it's just wonderful. Like, how do you take chicharrones to the next level?
That's a funny story how that started. Traditionally, or Mexican chicharron is so different. It's exactly what you said. It's fatty, it's greasy, because that's just what it is.
Yeah.
When we opened, that's what we had. And we had, it's just a layer, which is just a skin, and there's that puffy crunch, which, don't get me wrong, I love. Or just the fatty part, which is literally just the fat, barely scraping the meat, and you fry it, it ends up being like a gizzard, which I also love, don't get me wrong. But like you said, most people don't. You either love it or you hate it, type of thing. This chicharron is actually a Colombian style type of chicharron. Due to my wife, we started getting a lot of Colombians and requests for this. I've never made one in my life. No Colombian, But I started looking at some recipes and I was like, okay, wait a minute. I made an Asian style pork belly, and they cook it very similar. And I was just like, I think I can create something similar. So I started playing with it and making it, and it came out all right, and it came out better, and I kind of just messed with the recipe, and I kept messing with it, and then finally hammered it down. And my wife's like, this is better than chicharron I've had in Colombia. Oh my God, you hit it right on the nail. And when Colombians started coming in and buying it nonstop, I knew I kind of made some good. And we sell out every day.
I believe it.
We sell out on a daily basis. I can't make enough of it. And like you said, I make it in a way where it's not fatty. You can squeeze it, and I show people. You can squeeze it, and it's not going to be greasy. It's going to be meaty. The fat's still there, but the way I render the fat down to where that fat tastes like meat. And it's not going to drip down the side of your mouth. That it's just been a great addition to the menu. And like you said, I think I gave it to you just to try that one.
I never would have ordered it on my own.
And a lot of people are like that, which is I educate them on it. I like educating people on food because they're not going to try it otherwise.
Yeah.
So you ever make it into the market, just ask me. If you haven't tried it, ask me what it is. If you want to taste it, I'll give you a taste, because I understand you're not around it. You're not going to know it. I'm more than happy to give you a taste, and I'll walk you through it and tell you what it's all about. So I love people giving it a taste, because I can't tell you how many times I've heard I would have never in my life tried it, and then they try it and they're blown away. Another key note to that is the lime on it.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't click in your head to squeeze a fresh lime on it, but Colombians like to squeeze fresh lime on top of it, which takes it to a whole different level. And everyone's just blown away every time they try it. At the beginning, my wife used to be like, stop giving it away. It's so expensive. Why do you do that? I was like, how many people have you seen not buy it after they taste it? She's like, you're right. Okay.
Not many.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah. It's worth the extra 30 minutes on the treadmill, or
whatever you need.
many
It
that
is.
you eat. Yeah.
Every day I say, I'm trying to lose weight. I'm not going to do it. And we cook it. I'm like, oh, I got to have a bite.
I mean, at that point, that's for the safety of the customers. You
Absolutely.
just got to, it's quality control. You got to make,
Exactly.
you're just looking out for us. Thank you,
Exactly.
Jose, for your dedication.
And I will continue to do so.
So how did you get into cooking originally?
Started 20 plus years ago. I kind of, I work in a restaurant, and I started in front of the house. I was a server, I was a bartender, I was a busser. Anything in a restaurant business I've done. And of course, I was a bachelor, and payday would come, or rent would come, I would say, and I didn't have the money because I would be blowing it away. And because as a server you get tips, and everything is cash in your pocket, and you're spending it. So it actually started that I asked for a kitchen position, so I would have a server job and I have a kitchen position, so I wouldn't spend the money and I would get a paycheck. That's kind of how it started, and then I just found love for it. I noticed I found a niche for it. I started creating. Went from prep to a cook to a sous chef to executive chef, etc. But that's kind of how it started. Then I decided I wanted to go to culinary school. I had started Metro, and I never finished. I wish I would have. I never finished. I just got so busy. I got promoted, and then I got to exec, and at a very young age, by 21, I was already executive chef. So
holy cow.
Yeah. So I was just kind of got in my head that, why do I need to do this if I'm already here type of deal, But yeah, I just found love for the food. And I think that's what it is. I found love for the food. Not only just cooking it, but the background behind it. I wanted to know where it came from, how it's created, why it tasted that way, why do they blend, and how do they make it, how do they grow it? Just the whole thing behind it. I think that helps you get to the next level. It's not like you're just cooking stuff. You're not just following a recipe.
You're trying to understand it.
Understand it, and why it creates that flavor, I just found love for cooking in general, That's how it started, though. It kind of backed into it just like everything else in my life.
Well, we're happy that you backed into it. Now, if someone visited your establishment today, I think they'd say, oh, Jose probably worked in a bunch of Mexican or Latin restaurants. And you have some experience there, but your resume includes Upstream, Corvette Cafe, Primo's, Crave. You got your Kona Grill shirt on today. Like, that's a pretty wide variety of experiences. When you look back, how did those different experiences and that varied cooking background kind of form you into the chef and the cook that you are today?
Like I said, I've always been attracted to Asian food, which is why you saw Crave and Kona Grill. I was executive chef at Kona Grill for a long time. They're very good to me, which is why I still have the shirt. I'm wearing it. But when I thought about opening a place, I don't think it stuck in my head that I was going to open a Mexican restaurant. I have to be honest. I don't think that was my focus. I don't think it ever has been. I don't think it was like, oh, I'm going to open a Mexican food, because yes, I cooked Mexican food, but it wasn't like, that's what I want to do. In my head, it's always been fusion, like a mixture of stuff, because I've done, I was executive chef at, I don't think you saw it on it, but it was Lucky's 1001 downtown. One of the investors from Upstream got out and started Lucky's 1001, which was the old Angie Steakhouse down south, and then created an Italian. So I got to create a menu there and items that was completely Italian food. With Kona, Asian, it's a fusion as well, Crave, etc. I've been at country clubs. We've done it all. That I wanted to create something like that, an Americana cuisine that's just a mixture of everything, But in my head, and I always thought I would put fusion in the name of whatever I opened. Whether it's Jose's Fusion Grill or whatever. I always thought that because I wanted to make a mixture. But with the store, obviously Latino, everyone kept asking for more of the Latin items, and I know how to cook them. I know how to cook them well. And that's kind of how that started about. But I don't think it was in my head that I want to open a Mexican place or a Latino place. I wanted to open a place that kind of a mixture, which I do. We have a mixture of everything. But I didn't want to close myself off. And I still don't. If I ever get blessed, and like I said, I do want to open a restaurant. But it would be something like that, just a mixture of everything. I don't want to close myself off. I like food. I like creating food. I like fusion. I like mixing stuff. You know, it just works out well. I mean, you can make a chimichurri steak with an Alfredo pasta, linguine, or a linguine pasta, right next to each other, you know, with toasted telera. I mean, you can even do grilled.
I would order that right now.
Grilled cactus with asparagus kicks into my head. Like, you got so many different cuisines mixed right there in one plate. You know, just that creation just kicks into my head, and that's how it's always been. Just a mixture. My wife tells me all the time, she's like, I don't even know where the heck you get these ideas, because I'm always just, it's never a regular item. It's always a mixture of cuisines, you know?
Is your brain just constantly firing off like that? Is that just
It
how
never
it works?
stops.
Yeah.
It never stops. I don't think it ever takes a break. I see something and I want to create it. You know, I see a picture. It doesn't even have to be food. I see a dessert, and it kicks into my head how to make it into a meal. Because I see the plating, and I'm like, whoa, that looks amazing. How can I make that into a dinner plate? You know, it just kicks into my head. What can I make this look like that?
Do you have an example of that?
You know, the other day we were looking at, it was a couple, it was desserts actually. And I was just trying to think, the plating of it just looked amazing. And in my head, I started thinking of how I can do it. And I guess I was thinking chilaquiles for some reason kind of kicked in because they're colorful. And I was like, if you create 3 different sauces with different colors, you get a vibrant mix of colors. And then what could you do to put on top? So I thought like chives poking up to give it that height and just stuff like that. You know, they can create a dish that's traditionally flat, no height, no real pretty picture to it, to give it some height and dimensions to it, you know? And that's kind of where my brain always just goes.
So, I mean, I can see just in the way that how excited you are right now, the way that your eyes light up when you talk about fusion and plating and height and stuff like that. I can tell that you want to like serve plated meals.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know, not that you have anything against, you know, serving to-go meals, take and bakes, anything like that, but you would be very interested in having the opportunity to create those plated meals again, I assume. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I was shying away from it, but some things are meant to be.
Yeah.
You know, I love creating. I like creating dishes. I like creating food. I think in the future we're talking about opening a place where I can create some mess because I love it. I love cooking. I love creating. That I think it's in our future for sure. I just was trying to shy away from those late hours, that time consuming. That's kind of where this idea came from. You know, it's not that I don't love restaurants. It's not that I absolutely love food and restaurant business and creating. It's just those hours, those consuming your entire life that I was trying to shy away from. So if I did something, it would be among kind of our hours type of thing. You know, I don't want to do late hours. I don't want to do that crazy stuff where you're just there till 3 a.m. and just lose that family time, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where we're headed. But yes, I do miss it, of course. It's been in my blood, and that's all I know how to do is food, which is why we're selling so much food at the store.
Well, if that ever comes in the future, sign me up because everything that you just described sounds fantastic. And just seeing how, like I said, how excited you seem about it, like I can tell that, yeah, you're passionate about it. But what you just said brings up something that I wanted to ask you about. And LinkedIn can be very hit or miss. But according to your LinkedIn, you actually, after your last restaurant job, before opening the market, worked a couple years as a car salesman. Is that accurate?
No. No. Yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay.
It's actually my business.
Oh, that's your business.
It
Okay.
is. So I own a car lot as well.
I did not know that. Yeah. Okay, but you got out of the restaurant industry for a couple of years.
So no.
No,
Never left it.
I'm just all wrong.
I was at Primo's,
yes,
which is my last job. I was district manager for Primo's. You know, I opened my car lot while I was at Primo's.
Okay.
So my car's actually, I've owned it for 3.5 years. That started as a hobby. I love cars as
you are
much
an
as I like food.
interesting man, Jose.
I'm all over the place. I like to keep busy, and I love cars and I like food. So it was always a hobby, cars and motorcycles. And I would buy them, build them, fix them up, and then get bored, sell it, and start on the next project. To where my wife, once again, was like, my wife's a finance major. So she looks at all that stuff, and it's a waste of money. So she's like, why do you do this? Because I love it. I love cars. This is what I do. She's like, well, why don't you turn it into a business? You still fix them up. You sell them. You get to enjoy the car for a little bit, but you sell, you make your money back, and you don't lose. And I'm like, okay, this is not a bad. She's like, why don't you talk to one of my cousins who's owned a car lot, whatnot, and chat with them, see what you can come up with. So I chatted with her, and I kind of liked the idea. And then, one of the things that my wife does, she starts up LLCs. So we came up with an idea, a name, which is Cali Auto Sales. So funny story, I'm from California. But you never say I'm from California. You say I'm from Cali. Where are you from? Cali. She's from Cali, Colombia.
Oh, wow.
Yes. We combined them together and call it Cali Auto Sales. Another weird thing is Colombia colors for the flag are yellow, blue, and red. California flag colors are yellow and blue. So they share the colors. So we combined that, and that's how we made it happen.
It was meant to be.
So I kind of started that as I just got a little shop. Car lot was not in my picture. That's not what I was. It was just more or less, some small, keep it going. But what happened was when I started the store, the plan was never for me to resign from Primos. I rather enjoyed working for Primos. The owner was very good to me and my family. He's a friend, continues to be a friend. And it was never the plan to leave. He was always like, I don't want to let you go, and let's figure out a way to work it. So the plan was for my wife to run that. And I could still run the car lot and whatnot and manage, what I was managing with Primos, which at the time was a restaurant. I helped him with, he owns a lot of business. So I kind of helped him out with everything. I ran a couple venues as well, like catering halls and whatnot. And then we were going to open another store in Omaha, which I opened before I left. The plan was never to leave. The plan was to start it and have my wife run it. But the food, that's what kind of kicked in. And I had to. It was just too much for me to do. He was about to open another store on top of it. So it's just going to be too many stores under my provision to be able to have mine, and I will not invest it. So that's kind of how that started. So I resigned shortly before I opened my store. Well, my project, like I said, started so long that it went from Millard to the current location. We're supposed to open in May, and that just dragged and dragged and dragged and dragged. And I had hired people. So I was having to pay people for not working. So, of course, I started selling more cars. And like I said, it was just I had a small shop. I started a business, everything, but I wasn't a car lot. I found out real quick that you could only sell a certain amount of cars before you actually have to have a dealership, an actual dealer's license. The state kind of hit me with that one. So I was forced to get an actual dealer license and become a dealership because I was selling so many cars. Because the store was taking so long. So I actually opened a car lot before the store, but the car lot was never a plan. Well, that's how it kind of started. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
I'm glad that we went on that journey because that was fascinating. I did not expect to have that conversation today, but that's
yeah.
part of the beauty of hearing people's stories. You get to hear all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so I still have that, but the store's keeping me so busy lately that I haven't been doing much with it right now. But I still have it, and yeah.
Now you mentioned the goal was to open the store in April. You eventually did open on October 22nd of 2022.
Yep.
And like you said, you've had this idea in your brain for a decade, if not more. What was it like for you to finally see it realized and be able to open those doors and people are coming inside and looking around and ordering food? What was that day like for you?
I get asked that a lot. And, friends and family are like, how do you feel? You got your store, you got two businesses now. How does it feel? How are you taking it in? And I was like, I got to be honest, till this day, I don't think it's kicked in. I haven't fully felt it. I just think I'm so busy. I'm still, not where I want to be with it. There's so many levels I want to get to that I'm so busy trying to create that it hasn't quite kicked in. And I really have to like sit back and reflect a little bit at times to realize that I made it happen. And even then, I still can't quite grasp it that I am doing it. Once again, my wife has been the biggest pusher for all this. But she told me this last week, as a matter of fact, when we were talking, she's like, you realize that you're never going to have to work for anybody else again. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm not too big for that. I was like, if I have to work for somebody, I could work. She's like, no, like, Jose, like, your business is doing well. You're not slowing down anytime soon. And both your businesses are doing it. She's like, you're never going to work for anybody else again. She's like, I don't see how you could do it. And it kind of took me a second to like reflect on that. I was like, my God, you're right. Like, I mean, hopefully, I pray to God that is, but yeah, it would be really hard to go back to work for somebody again, not having to be able to make the decisions that I make, Some of my ideas, I think might be silly, but to me, they're not. But to other people, I think they are, because I've had these ideas before and I've mentioned them and they kind of get brushed off to where I created up and they're great, Some simple like the salsa, angry salsa, I created the salsa and my father was helping me at the time, my wife, and it's the spiciest salsa I have. And I made it for myself because I love spicy food. And they're like, my wife was like, no, you got to be angry to eat this stuff. And I was just like,
Perfect.
It's going to be angry salsa. She's like, no, that's silly. I was like, I don't care. I'm going to name it that. And it's stuck and people love it. But I think anybody else would be like, I don't know about that. And just stuff like that, I can make that decision. And it's cool. It's cool. It's something so little that doesn't seem like it, but, it's cool that you can create something and just name it whatever you want and just make that decision. Where I've managed a lot of restaurants and corporate restaurants, especially corporate, where you don't have that say. It's their way. It's 100% their way. You got to jump through a lot of hoops to make a simple change to make a recipe completely better. I can make that overnight, I can make that decision. I can change the recipe, and make it what I think is better to where you can't do it at another place. So that's awesome.
Do you think working for other people and working on their concepts for so long, and not saying anything bad about any of those restaurants, you mentioned that you loved working at several of them, but has that made you appreciate that freedom even more, where you can make angry salsa? If you want to make a mole, you can make a mole. If you want to make Colombian chicharrones, you can try that. Like, does that just make you, do all those experiences make you value that freedom even more?
Absolutely. I think that's what I'm valuing more than anything. That freedom. Not saying that I own a place, not saying that honestly, the freedom right there. The freedom to create, because I don't get much other freedom. I don't get to leave early. I don't get to, I'm there before and I'm there after. But the freedom to create, definitely. I think we take that for granted. Or maybe some people might take it for granted that I don't want to, because that is the best feeling, making that decision. Like I said, I've been in the business for so many years, and there's so much stuff that I'm just like, God, this is pointless. Why do we do this? My last job, Primos, that's one thing I was able to create. When he started, I left Kona Grill, which is very corporate. It was an amazing company. Like I said, they were very good to me. They were great. But going from that to that mom and pop's place was completely different. So the way he said it to me was, whatever you do there, half of it you don't need to do. So cut out all that bull and just mainstream and give us that here. And I was able to do that. And I was just like, wow, that was cool, because a lot of stuff was just like relentless. You'd have a list for a list for a list. It's just like, why am I doing this extra work? To where I was able to cut that out. And now that I have my own, I'm able to even cut more out. But I think it's still it's very important. A lot of the corporate stuff, it's very important because it teaches consistency. It keeps stuff structure, which is still very important. So I got to learn that stuff, and I'm able to implement that in my business. So I'm very glad and fortunate to have those experiences, because I've been reading a lot. In most small businesses, specifically restaurants, don't make it because of that. Because they don't have that structure. They've never been taught. They don't know that stuff. That at the end of the day, this is a business, and it's got to be run. It's got to be ran as one. So if you don't know how to run a restaurant as a business, then you're probably gonna fail. And I've been running restaurants for over 20 years, and I've made so many mistakes.
Mistakes are the best teacher, though.
And exactly, and and I continue to make mistakes. So thankfully, I got my wife on board. I got good mentors, good friends that I'm able to speak to and kind of get some pointers. But even as a person running restaurants for 20 plus years, I still make mistakes, and I'm just like, wow. You think you know it all, but you don't. You really don't. You continue to grow and you continue to learn every day. In the business and food, it just never stops. It's always a learning curve.
Well, you've clearly learned a lot, and it has taught you some very good things, because I believe you when you say Aviles Latin Market is not a finished product. It's going to continue to grow, but it is fantastic. Even if it stopped right now at its current state, it is fantastic as it is. You've got some awesome food. I mean, we didn't even really hit on the market side of it with all the, just stuff from other countries that you have. Yeah. But I could talk to you for hours, Jose. It has just been so much fun. Unfortunately, we're up against the clock, but I'm just so appreciative of you, man, for creating something that you wanted, that you brought something that was not really available in West Omaha, and you've opened it up to West O, and clearly we like it quite a bit. And thank you so much just for coming on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me.
You talked about how you're such a busy guy, and I absolutely believe that 100%. And you gave time to this podcast. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you've done. Like you said, to you it's nothing. You just went and tried some food. You enjoyed it. But you opened the eyes to a lot of people that hadn't seen us, haven't met us yet, and that has brought a lot of customers. And they become family. They become friends. There's a saying, and it says, a customer will become a friend faster than a friend will become your client. And it's
I like that.
Very true. I have so many friends that still haven't visited my store, but I got new customers or become friends who are there all the time, that support me in a big way, And at the end of the day, that's what it is. So you've been a huge support for our business and our store, and you open your eyes to our food. And like I said, it's not a finished product by any means. It will continue to grow. I will continue to bring new stuff. So definitely stay tuned. Stay tuned for sure.
Well, listeners, viewers, if you want to become Jose's friend, just go have his food once. You will be a repeat customer. I guarantee, whether you want to get some tacos, whether you just need to grab something to go, grab some enchiladas, you get that Cubano, you will be back. I promise you.
Come back and see us.
Thank you again, Jose. Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.